Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Ada yang tanya kat mana? Alright, so welcome to seminar 6. So untuk hari ni, I'll try to finish 2 topics. Okay, topic 9 and topic number 10. Okay, hopefully kita boleh cover everything. Mungkin I have to simplify a bit some of the explanation as compared to the morning session. I nampak bila I explain too much, dia drag a bit. So let me share first the screen. Right, so we're going to start off today with topic number 9, where we're going to talk about the long-term financing. So this topic number 9 is actually continuation from the previous topic. Okay, topic number 8, we discussed about the short-term financing, the options, and obviously how to calculate the costs untuk short-term financing. So for today, we're going to expand a bit and talk about long-term financing. Okay, so kalau short-term financing, previously we've discussed the options. Ada banyak, tapi we focus only on 4. Right, we have the term credit, we have the short-term bank loans, we have the revolving credit, and lastly the commercial paper. So for today, long-term financing, we just gonna focus on 3 options untuk long-term financing. Okay, so namely, let me write it here. Kita ada bonds, number 1. We have preferred stocks. And we have the common stocks. Okay, so these are the 3 types and alternatives that we have that we're going to focus on for long-term financing. So adalah a bit about the characteristics, the features of each and every single instruments that we have here. And most importantly is how to calculate the cost. Sebab ingat, when we have this short-term financing, mostly kita guna pakai short-term financing tu untuk cover short-term shortages. Okay, because of fluctuations of funds, ada shortage of funds because of seasonal issues. Tapi long-term financing ni selalunya keperluan dia berlaku disebabkan either the company wants to expand their business, to embark in a new project, ataupun to upgrade punya facilities yang memerlukan kos yang besar. Alright, so therefore, instead of they borrow short-term basis, they have to borrow long-term basis so that dia match lah keperluan dia pada jangka masa yang panjang dengan value yang selalunya. When we talk about long-term financing, value dia selalunya besar lah. And obviously, we're going to discuss how to calculate the cost. Cuma, bila kita cerita pasal short-term financing sebelum ni, memang fokus kita adalah we're going to choose whichever cost the cheapest. Okay, untuk long-term financing ni sebenarnya yes, in a way kita akan tengok and kita akan pilih which option yang akan bagi kita cost yang paling murah. But there are some cases mungkin instead of kita pilih yang paling murah, we might end up picking all of the options and find the average cost. So kejap lagi kita discuss lah the difference between the 2 conclusion after we measure the cost of financing for each of the options available. Right. So I dah mention pasal keperluan ni tadi. Company needs capital for a lot of things, termasuklah like I said, enhance dia punya facilities, upgrade dia punya machineries, embark in a new project and so on. So as a company, they have options either to to involve ataupun to get the financing through debt melalui hutang. Okay, so dalam kes ni hutang ni termasuklah bond lah tadi We have bond, BOND, bonds, or by using equity. So equity ni termasuklah common stocks. And there's one option yang tadi yang kedua ni sebenarnya preferred, which is actually a hybrid between debt and equity. So dia in between lah. It's not debt per se, it's not equity juga sebab dia share the same characteristics between the two. Okay, so they have to find solutions lah, ataupun they have to find what would be the best option for them in order to get the financing. And since the value tu besar, ada kemungkinan juga they might end up picking all three options. Okay, so I will not talk in detail about this. Kita go straight number one. Kita tengok bonds straight. Okay, ini adalah option yang pertama. The first option, bonds. And imagine a company, let's say dia perlukan 2 million ringgit. Okay, they need 2 million ringgit. So we have two parties here. Kita ada one, it's called the issuer. Okay, and then the other, which is known as the holder. So issuer ni siapa? Issuer ni adalah peminjam lah, the borrower. They are the one who needs money, needs fund. Okay, so they are the one who needs the 2 million ringgit ni. And on the other side, we have the holder ataupun the investor. Okay, they are the one with money. Okay, yang ni tak ada cukup fund, this one ada extra cash. Okay, and this issuer needs 2 million ringgit. So what they gonna do? Issuer ni akan issue bonds. Okay, dia jual certificate lah. Okay, and what's gonna happen? The holder akan purchase the bond and give or invest their money to the issuer. Okay, dia akan bagi duit lah to the issuer. So imagine satu certificate of bonds tu nilai dia RM1,000. Satu keping. Ini satu keping RM1,000. So if they want to get 2 million, you have to divide by RM1,000 lah. So technically they're gonna be 2,000 certificates that needs to be sold. Ada 2,000 keping certificate yang perlu dijual. Okay, so let's say lah issuer ni berjaya jual all the certificates, the 2,000 pieces tu, and there's plenty of holders kat dalam ni. Ada ramai lah, dia bukan seorang je beli semua. There be a lot of investors, and when the certificate sold out, the issuer will receive the 2 million ringgit. So what's the holder will receive? Okay, so there are two components. Issuer ni akan pulangkan semula first to the investor dalam bentuk kupon. You're gonna give them coupon. Coupon ni apa? Coupon ni adalah interest. You're gonna pay the interest to the investor. And this coupon ataupun interest will be fixed. Tetap, dia tak berubah. Okay, katakanlah tadi dia invest 2 million for 10 years, untuk 10 tahun. Okay, so technically the borrower kena bayar balik to the holder dalam tempoh 10 tahun lah, in 10 years time. So every year borrower needs to pay the investor ataupun the issuer needs to pay the holder a coupon, and this coupon will be fixed. Okay, and will be fixed and will be paid either annually or semi-annually. So katakanlah kalau rate dia 5%, let's say the rate is 5%. Okay, and this 5%, the rate will be fixed throughout the tenure. sepanjang tempoh 10 tahun tu, the rate will be 5% regardless what happens to the business. So meaning, kalaulah the payment of coupon tu will be annually, so setiap tahun, the 5%, kita darab dengan one certificate nilai dia RM1,000. So the payment would be RM50 for one certificate. Okay, RM50 for one certificate. Right, so maksudnya dekat sini, kalaulah for RM2 million ni, technically this company needs to pay around berapa tu? 2 million times 5%. Times 10,000 Sorry, 100,000. So 100,000 will be paid to the investor. Okay, setiap tahun borrower ni kena bayar 100,000 to all the investors if it's 5%. Okay, which is RM50 for one certificate. Since we have 2,000 units, so 50 darab 2,000 2,000 units, so it's equivalent to 100,000. But if it's semi-annually, the payment will be RM25 times 2. So maknanya setahun still RM50, tetapi payment dia akan dibayar 2 kali. RM25 for every period lah. Every 6 months kalau dia semi-annually. Right, so in total still 100,000, but the payment will be made 50,000 and 50,000 2 times in a year. Okay, itu satulah. So they have to pay the coupon. But what happens to the principal 2 million ni? So obviously the 2 million will be repaid back to the investor. Cuma the repayment of this principal ni, okay, principal contoh tadi 2 million kan. This 2 million will be paid at maturity. Okay, dia akan bayar lump sum one single payment at maturity. And that's how the money flows lah, from holder to the issuer at first, and then bila dah dapat 2 million, dia gunalah 2 million tu for whatever reason, dia nak expand dia operation ke, and then there will be more money incoming. So the money that generated from the investment that they made with the 2 million, dia akan bayar 5% to the investor, to the holder, every single year for 10 years. And pada tahun ke-10, dia akan pulangkan balik the 2 million back to the investor. So that's how the bonds work lah basically. And we want to know from this activity, berapa cost dia sebenarnya. Right, so there are some calculation that we have to do lah in order to get the answer. So this is the definition of bonds. It is a long term. So satu long term, kita boleh letak dia lah, example dia around 5 to 40 years. So dia memang jangka masa yang agak lama. And it can be issued either by the government or the corporates, the business units. Okay, so the rest tu nanti you baca lah. Dia punya priority tu yang paling atas as compared to the preferred dengan common stockholders. Dia akan ada contract yang dipanggil indenture. Okay, dalam contract tu dia specify lah all the terms and conditions. And the ones yang akan monitor the transaction, sebab dia ada dua pihak je kat sini tadi kan. We have the issuer and also the holder. So who wants to ensure that the issuer ni akan fulfill dia punya promise untuk bayar? Okay, so that's why we have trustee and also the Securities Commission as the governing body to ensure that these terms and conditions in the contract will be carried out. Okay, sebab kalau tak nanti the holder ataupun the investor tadi akan ada masalah lah. Kalau ada apa-apa problem, dia tak boleh nak report kepada siapa-siapa kan. So that's why we have this trustee and also Securities Commission as the governing body lah. So now we look at the characteristics of bonds. As I mentioned, we assume the value of bond at par ataupun the face value is RM1,000. So kalau soalan tak mention about the par value pun, we always assume that the par value would be RM1,000. Okay, so contoh tadi lah, kalau dia nak raise 2 million, so 2 million divided by RM1,000, we have 2,000 units of bonds that needs to be issued to the investors. And as I mentioned, coupon ni fix. Okay, coupon ni fix. And since par value dia RM1,000, okay, the coupon will always be used against the par value. Sebab apa? Sebab the price of the bond, walaupun initially the par value tu 1,000, but the price of the bond can fluctuates. Price of bond, when they go above 1,000, it's called the premium bond. Okay, kalau price of bond go less than RM1,000, this is panggil discount bond. Okay, so maksudnya kat sini, the price of bond can fluctuates. Harga dia boleh lebih RM1,000, boleh kurang daripada RM1,000. But at the end of the day, the coupon will be based on the par value. Okay, will be based on the par value. And this par value ataupun this coupon can be paid, like I said, either annually or semi-annually tadi lah. So bila I bagi example 5% earlier, so par value dia 1,000. So technically the coupon would be RM50. So kalau annually is RM50. Or the semi-annually, RM25 times 2. Alright, so that's why coupon ni always will be based on par value. Sebab like I said, price of bond tu boleh berubah. So kalau harga bond tu semasa 1,200, so dia bukanlah 5% darab 1,200. So 5% is always based on the par value. Okay, and this par value RM1,000 ni pun akan dibayar semasa maturity. Okay, remember tadi the principal is 2 million. So at the end of maturity, the issuer will pay 2 million sahaja to the investors. So kalaulah sebelum dia end tu harga dia dah naik ke 1,200 contohnya. So 1,200 kalau ikutkan darab dengan 2,000 unit ni, dia dah lebih daripada 2 juta ni. Sebab 2.4 million. Okay, tetapi at maturity, the issuer will just pay the principal, which is based on 1,000 lah. So regardless of the price before that, even the price below 1,000 pun, dia akan still akan bayar pada harga RM1,000 setiap satu unit, didarab dengan jumlah bonds yang di-issue. Then they get the initial capital lah, ataupun initial principal. Selain daripada tu, we have the yield to maturity, the YTM. So YTM ni is a type of measurement, selalunya digunakan pakai oleh investor. Okay, investor to identify their returns. If they invest in this type of bond, and then they will keep it until maturity, berapa return dia. Okay, but as issuer's point of view, okay, from issuer's point of view, we can use yield to maturity ni to identify the cost. Okay, what will be our cost? Okay, remember tadi, kalau you tengok kat sini ada dua pihak. This is the first party, this is the second party. Okay, and since we are looking from financial management point of view, kita adalah the issuer. Okay, kita bukan measure kalau kita investor. So kalau you belajar nanti investment management ke portfolio ke, you're going to look from investors point of view. So here we are looking from the companies or the issuers point of view. So kita gunakan yield to maturity ni to identify what will be the cost. Okay, so again the same measurement we can use for investors point of view. Kita nak tengok berapa return kita. So sebab yield ni is actually talking about return, right? So the same measurement can be used by both parties, and the way we look at it je berbeza, right? And then there are some other information kat sini lah, baca lah. There are two types of bond, either secured or unsecured. So secured ni, bahasa mudah dia, it comes with collateral, dengan cagaran. Kalau unsecured ni is without collateral. So meaning the issuer will use their assets, tak kira lah aset yang sedia ada ataupun assets yang akan diterbitkan from this bond, akan di-purchase from this bond as collateral. Okay, that will be secured. Whereas kalau the issuer doesn't put any collateral as part of the contract dalam the issuance of bonds ni, it is known as the unsecured. So between the two, obviously the secured bond will be lower risk for investors as compared to the unsecured lah. And because of that, selalunya secured bond ni the rating satu, and also the price ataupun the return tu selalunya lagi rendah lah as compared to the unsecured ones. Okay, so nanti bacalah all the details of secured and also unsecured. So we're going to focus now on how to determine the cost. Okay, before we identify the cost, there are few considerations that we have to make before we can identify the returns ataupun the cost. Sorry, kita tak tengok return, kita tengok the cost. So number one is in terms of the proceed. Kalau you ingat in the previous topic, we also identify the concept of proceeds. Okay, bila kita nak pinjam X ringgit, contohnya from a bank akan letak certain conditions. Okay, dari segi discount interest ke, ataupun compensating balance ke, in order to determine ataupun to put in the terms and conditions. So therefore, as borrower, bila diletak compensating balance contohnya, katakanlah kita pinjam 100,000, if there's any compensating balance, there are some portion from that 100,000 cannot be used, cannot be utilized. So therefore, our proceed will be less. So similarly for bond, okay, walaupun tadi I bagi example, we need to issue 2 million ringgit worth of bonds kan, 2 million. But because bond selalunya will be issued with the assistance of banks. Still bank ada play important role kat dalam issuance of bond ni lah, walaupun kita tak pinjam directly with the bank, but the bank will assist, okay, the company in issuance of bond. So therefore we have to pay them some fees lah. So fees tu masuk dalam the cost of issuing. So maksudnya dekat sini, if we sell one unit of 1,000 ringgit, okay, and there'll be, let's say, 2% cost of issuing. Okay, so 2% daripada 1,000 ringgit ni, it become 20 ringgit kan. So the proceeds that we're going to get from the transaction, it will be 1,000 minus 20 ringgit for one unit, which equates to 980 ringgit. So nilai proceed that we can get for each unit is just 980 ringgit. So maknanya daripada 1,000 ringgit yang kita jual, 20 ringgit will be paid to the bank, and we just gonna get 980 ringgit. Okay, so basically that's how the proceeds work lah. Okay, so yeah, we have to consider that as part of our cost, sebab kita tak dapat the full amount. Unless we pay ataupun we sell it at a higher price. Remember concept tadi, price of bond can be premium or discount. So dalam case ni, dia at par, tetapi because of the cost of financing, dia dapat less than 1,000. Okay, there are some cases, the issuance price ataupun the selling price itself dah memang at discount, and then kena tolak lagi the cost of issuing. And secondly, ataupun thirdly, when the price is at premium, lebih daripada 1,000, then tolak financing cost, and the proceed can be above 1,000 ringgit. Okay, so regardless, we have to determine the proceed lah, the net proceeds. And every debt issuance, especially bond, kita kena identify the cost tu after tax basis. Okay, after tax basis. Why? Because especially when we talk about bond ataupun debt, the coupon or interest yang kita bayar tu adalah tax deductible. Okay, they are tax deductible. So that's why for bonds, we have to find the value after tax basis. So meaning, after we identify the general cost, kita kena tolak the tax punya portion in order to determine what would be the after tax cost of debt. Okay, so that's why dia ada formula ni lah. Okay, cost of debt equals to cost of debt darab dengan satu tolak T, sebab KD yang ni, yang small k ni, can be identified in multiple ways. Okay, kejap lagi tengok kita ada dua jenis cara nak kira the cost of debt. Dia ada DCF method dengan YTM method. Okay, so DCF method ni sebenarnya lagi accurate, more accurate. Okay, but downside dia dia complex calculation. Okay, especially kalau you nak calculate dia guna formula lah, right? It be complex. Tapi if you have financial calculator, it will be much easier kita guna DCF instead of the second one, YTM. Okay. Alternatively, alright, and much easier, kita guna yang ni lah. Cuma dia less accurate sikit lah. So out of these two, sebenarnya I don't mind you nak guna yang mana-mana. Tapi untuk yang pertama tu sebenarnya, kalau you have financial calculator, memang kita akan gunakan method number one lah. But since I think majority of you tak ada financial calculator, so I tak go through lah DCF ni so kita guna YTM sahaja. Okay, whereby in order to do the YTM method, we have to rely on formula. Okay, kena guna formula lah untuk kira, and steps dia akan melibatkan step number one, you have to find the yield to maturity. So YTM ni is yield to maturity. Then step number two, to find the after tax cost. Okay, especially cost of debt lah, cost of debt. So we have two steps. The YTM tu panjang sikit step je. Cuma step number 2 ni sebenarnya we use this formula lah to find. Cuma KD ni kita akan replace dia dengan yield to maturity darab dengan 1/3. So first step cari YTM, second step baru kita cari the after tax. Okay, kejap lagi I write the full formula lah to find the yield to maturity. So this is the way kalau kita nak guna the DCF method. DCF method rely heavily on the present values ataupun the time value of money concept. But again, we're gonna ignore this. Ni sebenarnya nak measure the value of bond. Ni cari value of bond. Kita dah cari value of bond guna formula ni, then kita akan cari the after tax values. Okay. So kita ignore je basic rule of thumb semua ni. Kita straight tengok example ni menggunakan YTM. Okay. Using YTM approach ataupun YTM approach lah. Right, so assume that JJB Sports plan to issue 1 million. So dia ada 1 million of issuance of bond yang dia perlukan with the face value of 1,000. So this is our par value, 1,000 ringgit, with the annual coupon interest of 12%. So our coupon C is equivalent to 12% darab RM1,000. So 120. So 120 will be the coupon payment. Okay, for 10 years. So this is our N. N ni adalah maturity. Maturity date dia lah. Maturity date dia tahun ke-10. And due to high interest rate, it can be sold for 950 each. So this is the market price. Okay, and the issuance cost 5%. And since the issuance cost dia letak 5% saja, so the issuing cost ni kita ambil 5% darab dengan the par value lah, 1,000. So 5% darab 1,000, RM50. Okay. So 50 darab 1,000. Sorry, 5% darab 1,000 is RM50. Alright, so just be cautious when you do calculation macam ni. There are some cases the issuing cost ni dia bagi percentage, but instead of dia tulis macam ni, issuing cost of 5% ataupun issuing cost of 5% from the par value, there are some cases dia kata the issuing cost of 5% from the selling price contohnya, ataupun from the market price. So kalau lah dia kata 5% of the market price, so 5% ni kena darab dengan 950 instead of 1,000. Okay, so dia akan very explicitly tulis kat situ, the issuing cost is 5% of market price. So kalau macam tu, the 5% kena darab dengan 950 instead of 1000 lah. So read the question carefully before you put down the answer lah. Right. So kalau you tengok the consideration just now, kita kena identify the proceeds. So kita dah boleh congak lah kat sini What would be our proceeds? Okay, so proceed is based on based on the issuing price ataupun the market price tolak the cost of issuing ataupun the tak silap masalah bukan commitment fees, dia IC lah, issuing cost, ataupun sometimes kita guna flotation cost, FC. Okay, IC ataupun FC issuing cost ataupun flotation cost. So based on this is market price tolak issuing cost. So market price dia 950 and the issuing cost kita dah define tadi RM50. So the proceed is RM900. So meaning from this exercise out of 1 million ni ataupun 1000 ringgit for one unit tu, so this company akan dapat RM900 sahaja. Okay, so RM50 they discount, then another RM50 they have to pay the bank, the issuance cost RM50. So they're just gonna get RM900 sahaja. Okay, so maknanya from 1 million tu mungkin dia akan dapat 900,000 je lah, 900,000. So 100,000 tu dia dapat because of the discount RM50, and then RM50 lagi per unit tu dia akan bayar kepada bank. But anyway, so once you get this information sorted, so you dah tahu cost, you dah tahu the par value, the market price, the proceeds, okay, the N 10 tahun, then we can find the yield to maturity. Okay, so the yield to maturity formula dia adalah coupon payment plus the par value minus the proceed divide by N, and then we're going to divide everything, par value plus proceed divide by 2. Okay, so remember, this is your step 1. Okay, this is your step number 1. So the coupon kita dah define, the C tadi 12% times 1000 is RM120. So that's your coupon. Okay, remember the coupon ni kita tak nak rate dia, kita nak dia dalam ringgit. It's not the 12% tu. The 12% tu kena darab dengan 1000, which is 120. So we put it here 120. And then we tahu the par value is always 1000. The proceed kita dah define tadi RM900. Okay, and how long? N tadi is 10 years. So we divide everything by 1000 plus 900 divide by 2. Okay, so yang kat bawah ni, the denominator ni is actually the average prices lah. 1000 plus 900 divide by 2 ni sebenarnya purata harga dia lah. Okay, and then multiply with 100 to get it in percentage. Okay, tak muat ke belah sana tulis ke belah kiri ni. So it's 1000 minus 900. Okay, solve dalam bracket dulu Ada friend cakap tu buat mas kan. So solve the bracket first. 100 minus 900, 1000 minus 900 divided by 10. So 1000 minus 900 is 100. Divided by 10 is 10. Plus 120, so it becomes 130. So numerator 130. And then we divide by this average. 1000 campur 900 bagi 2, 950. Kita boleh congak je kan. So divide by 950. Okay, so here you're going to get 13.68%. Okay, 13.68%. Okay, so this is if we use formula, okay, ataupun yield to maturity in order to get the cost lah. Tapi this is cost before tax. Okay, cost before tax. Sebab bond ni kita akan tolak tax rate kejap lagi because as I mentioned, the payment of coupon tu adalah tax deductible. So kita kena cari the cost after tax. Okay, maybe quickly I boleh illustrate.
Saya nak tanya.
Yep.
I nak double confirm yang kalau dia punya equation tu YTM equal to coupon plus PV minus proceed divide by N.
Yep, betul.
So N tu means
Ni.
N tu apa?
Ni N ni years to maturity.
Okay.
Berapa tahun dia mature?
Okay, so bila dia punya tukar jadi calculation bawah tu PV plus proceed
yang bawah ni
divide by 2.
Tu ni sebab like I said, ni nak cari average price.
Oh, okay.
So dia bahagi dua lah. So
so daripada yang tadi coupon plus PV minus proceed tu dia punya calculation tu pergi ke 120 tambah dengan 1000 minus 900
stop yang dalam bracket ni dulu.
Okay.
Baru tambah 120. Dan dekat bawah ni kalau tadi atas minus, kat bawah ni kita plus and then divide by 2. Okay. So 2 ni fix. Okay, 2 ni fix. Kalau N ni bergantung kepada soalan how many years maturity dia. Tapi kalau kat bawah ni the denominator is always divide by 2. Okay.
Okay, saya try ni.
Alright. So, if you use financial calculator, especially kalau you guna Casio FC 200 ke FC 100 ke, so the function that we can use is actually called the compound function ataupun CMPD function ni lah. So kat dalam compound function ni, you just need to input information yang sama kita dah buat ni tadi, kita dah identify ni tadi, without we have to masukkan dalam formula lah. We just insert information je dalam ni. So contohnya, information yang diperlukan dalam the compound function ni, CMPD function ni, you need to put the N. So N kita dah define tadi 10 tahun. Kat dalam ni dia ada I percentage, the interest. Okay, so the interest ni yang kita akan solve kejap lagi untuk cari what would be the the yield. Okay, itu adalah the percentage. And then selain daripada tu dia ada present value. Present value ni adalah the proceeds. So proceed kita akan letak 900. Okay, and I put a negative sign kat sini sebab present value dalam function ni memang always negative to indicate bukan the negative value but indicates that we have to pay ataupun the investor have to pay the 900 ringgit. And then dia ada PMT. PMT ni adalah the coupon, sebab coupon adalah bentuk payment yang perlu issuer bayar. So the coupon is 120. And the future value is 1,000 ringgit because at mature the issuer kena bayar 1,000 ringgit balik kepada investor lah. And because of that, I simulate kejap based on this 10 tahun. Okay, I get the interest kat sini, the I percent ni equals to 13.91%. Okay, tanpa perlu kira tapi just masukkan information dalam calculator, I tulis je ni. Then I get the I percentage of 13.91%. So that's why dari segi accuracy, this is more accurate, 13.91, tapi estimation wise, kita masih guna pakai YTM lah. Right, so again, any options ataupun any method can be considered, tak ada masalah.
So sir, kalau kata kita orang boleh beli finance calculator tu, terus boleh bagi jawapan ke apa?
Tunjuk tulis ni lah, tunjuk macam mana you dapat. Ni, tulis ni je.
Oh, and then masuk dalam calculator and then kita produce the
I percent ni.
Okay, faham. So kalau final exam pun boleh jawab macam tu lah? Boleh.
Kalau ada financial calculator lah. Jangan tulis 13.691 ni je. Kena identify lah and berapa, nak menunjukkan you faham how you derive the information kat sini. Sebab you tak perlu tulis formula ni semula.
Okay, saya bagi 2 minit. Saya nak copy atas sekejap.
Right, but again, this is just the first step, just the first step. So you have two option kat sini. Kalau guna formula, you get 13.68, but if you use financial calculator, you get 13.91. Okay, but again, dua-dua jawapan diterima, depending on which method you use lah. Okay, and kena tulis in detail macam ni. Kalau you nak dapat 13.68, kena tunjuk formula macam ni. Or if you want to use financial calculator, kena tulis information yang ni. Sebab dalam financial calculator hanya 5 benda ni je you kena identify. Right. So untuk step number 2,
Just minute.
okay.
Tadi.
So I just nak tulis je. Step number 2 tu kita kena cari the after tax.
Okay, dah saya. Thank you.
Yeah. Right. So step number 1 clear, kita dah dapat 13.68. So but again, this is not the final answer. Okay, sebab we have to find the cost after tax. Okay, so ikutkan soalan ni sebenarnya dia suruh cari net proceed lah. So proceed tadi kita dah kira So proceed tu is 900 minus 50, then we get 900. And so ni kita dah define kat sini tadi. Okay, so untuk step number 2, to find the cost of debt, we need to know the tax rate. And untuk soalan ni, tax rate dia 40%. Okay, 40%. So untuk find the after tax cost, which is the KD, we need to use the YTM yang kita buat from step number 1, darab dengan 1 minus T. Okay, and T being the 40% rate lah untuk soalan ni. So meaning it's 13.68% darab dengan 1 minus 0.4. Okay ni 13.68 darab dengan 1.04 ataupun 0.6. So we get 8.21%. Okay, 8.21%. Kalau kita guna 13.91 tadi, 91 kalau kita guna 13.91%, 1 minus 0.4, kita dapat 8.35%. Kira dua boleh pakai lah, depending on which one you use.
Itu after tax apa saya tulis?
The after tax cost. Yeah, cost of debt. After tax cost of debt.
Sorry.
Okay.
Maksudnya KD kecil tu adalah YTM lah.
Yang ni, yes.
Okay.
But I tak tulis YTM at first sebab like I said dia ada dua option sebenarnya kan. Dia guna DCF ataupun guna YTM. So I assume ramai guna formula, so kita convert lah into YTM, or else it's just the small KD tadi lah. The before tax cost darab dengan 1 minus T to get the after tax cost. Okay, so that's how we define ataupun derive the cost of bond ataupun cost of debt if we issue bond. And generally, bond sebenarnya adalah option yang secara generalnya lah the cheapest sepatutnya. Tapi jangan assume semua soalan bond yang paling murah lah. Question boleh je dia saja je letak yang lain. Tapi in real life, selalunya the bond will be the cheapest option sebab satu, you as a company can decide yourself berapa rate of coupon you nak bayar depending on the rating punya proses tadi, so you can set yourself, especially kalau your rating score tu bagus, tinggi, then you can set a very low coupon rate. Okay, and on top of that, selain daripada coupon rate yang you boleh manage and control sendiri, the cost tu dia akan tolak the tax rate that can cost, you know, the rate of cost tu akan lagi rendah lah. Bayangkan daripada 13 something tinggal 8, itu kalau 40% lah, tapi kat Malaysia selalunya tax rate about 24-25% je. Okay, so but still akan lower down the cost lah, cost of pinjaman. So now let's move on. Ni jawapan dia lah. Ni cara nak gunakan discounted cash flow, tapi again still mathematic, guna calculation, and you akan nampak cara kira dia agak panjang. Okay, so that's why I don't encourage to use the formula untuk DCF, discounted cash flow, unless you have financial calculator. Kita guna financial calculator tadi terus dapat 13.91 kan. So kalau kita kena guna formula, you perasan the process kena kira macam ni, kena cari the price at this rate, and then kena simulate kalau dia higher berapa dia punya value, then kena buat interpolation, then baru dapat the answer, baru buat after tax. Then we get 8.35 lah, sama kan jawapan kita, 8.35 tadi. Tapi alternatively, you just use the YTM like so, then we're gonna get this 8.21 lah. So this one pun acceptable juga. Right? So that's bond. Let's proceed and move on. Tapi sebelum kita proceed, kita take break kejap lah. Take break kejap untuk sebelum kita proceed dengan preferred dengan common stocks kejap lagi. And we're gonna wrap up dengan kita try buat satu soalan past year yang complete for all three options, and how we try to solve lah question. Okay.
Saya nak tanya yang saya kata financial calculator tu apa model dia rasa?
Kalau dia ada banyak brand. Okay, kalau for myself personally, I use Casio FC 200V.
200V
Tapi kalau tak ada 200V, yang older model yang FC 100V tu pun boleh je pakai.
Okay sir, thank you.
Alright. Okay, kita take break sekejap. Okay, tadi kita record kan. Okay, let's proceed dengan dua lagi options yang ada for long term financing. Cuma untuk lagi dua ni, dia tak se-complicated to calculate the bond lah. Dan untuk preferred dengan common stock, we don't even have to use financial calculator. Kita guna calculator biasa pun boleh. Sebab dia very straightforward. Right, cuma first kita tengok a bit about preferred. As I mentioned earlier, preferred ni dia lebih berbentuk hybrid whereby they share characteristics of bond dengan common stocks. And it is considered less risky than common stocks tetapi lebih risky daripada bond. Why we have this statement? Okay, we can illustrate this by looking at the income statement. So you all pernah tengok income statement dah banyak kan. So dalam income statement, there's one part dekat dalam income statement tu, especially at the bottom half, you can see the earning before interest and taxes, ataupun kadang-kadang they use the term operating profit kat sini. Okay, selepas you dah dapat operating profit, usually we're going to pay the interest ataupun the finance cost. Right? And this is where the interest ni, the company akan bayar to the bondholders. Okay, so bondholders tadi yang based on the initial option yang kita dah discuss, akan terima dia punya kupon tu di sini when the company pay their interest ataupun the finance cost. Right? And lepas dah tolak interest, dia akan dapat the earning before tax. This EBT ataupun sometimes dia tulis PBT, profit before tax, adalah the amount of profit yang akan dikenakan cukai. So the tax will be based on EBT ni. Okay, then we're going to pay the tax, then kita akan dapat the net income lah. Okay, the net income. Okay, so kalau dia positif lagi, dia will be profits, net profit. Kalau dia negatif dekat sini, dia akan dah jadi loss lah. Okay, selalunya bila dia dah sampai EBT dia, kalau dah negatif, memang dia loss all the way lah. Right? So, ini cerita tadi ya. So, after dia dah declare the net income ataupun the net profit, the company akan bayar dividend. Okay, and there are two dividends. First, dia akan bayar dividend to the preferred stockholders. Okay, yang inilah yang kita tengah buat sekarang ni. Okay, and selepas dia dah bayar dividend kepada preferred stockholders, if there's any leftovers ataupun ada balance, so dia akan bayar dividend kepada common stockholders. Okay, which is the third option yang kita akan discuss kejap lagi. So here from this illustration, you can see why preferred stock dilabel sebagai less risky than common stocks. Sebab risiko dia rendah because dia akan terima payment dia sebelum common stockholders. Tetapi dia still consider more risky as compared to the bonds, sebab bond dapat lagi awal payment dia. Okay, so that's why in terms of ranking, if you compare the three, obviously bond yang paling risiko paling rendah. Okay, because they're going to receive it very much earlier. And then in the middle is preferred stockholders. And risiko yang paling tinggi adalah the common stockholders. Okay, so this is what is meant by this lah. Preferred stock is less risky than the common stock, tetapi lebih risky daripada bond. Okay, so some characteristics yang kita nak highlight. Kalau bond tadi, the par value is RM1,000 per certificate. Kalau untuk preferred, the par value kita letak dia as RM100. Okay, and again, why this par value important? Because these preferred stocks, dia punya karakteristik yang sama macam bond, they have fixed return. Okay, dia fixed return. So kalau tadi, the percentage of coupon kita darab dengan par value of 1,000. So kalaulah the return for preferred ni is 5%, okay, so kita kena darab dengan par value of RM100. So meaning, if 5% darab 100, the dividend would be RM5. Okay, and this RM5 will be fixed lah every year. Right, so the rest ni sama lah, dia explain tadi. Claim dia lagi awal daripada common stock, tetapi kemudian daripada bond. And in terms of maturity, dia sama macam common stock. They don't have maturity. Kalau bond, we have maturity between 5 to 40 years. But for preferred, we don't have any maturity. So dia unlimited life unless there's callable features lah. So callable features ni sama macam bond. Anyway, the cost that we're gonna look at, tak payah tengok selling price ni, kita tengok ni je, after tax cost. Even though they use the terms after tax cost, preferred ni sebenarnya memang dia punya dividen ni dibayar selepas tax kan. So you don't minus tax sekali lagi lah, right? Unlike bond tadi kita buat first step, find the cost before, and then we deduct the tax, then dapat after tax cost. Tapi untuk preferred dengan common stocks, we don't use the tax rate. So tax rate tu tak kena mengena dengan kita lah. Right. So I can rewrite this cost, the KPS ni, okay, to a more simplified format lah. So it's just dividend bahagi market price tolak flotation cost. So flotation cost ni sama macam issuance cost tadi lah. Cost that we have to pay to the broker ataupun to the bank. Okay, ini sahaja ya formula dia. Okay, ini sahaja. So unlike bond yang perlukan calculation of YTM ataupun kena guna financial calculator to find the cost before that, before tax, and then kita cari the after tax kan. So untuk ni, ini sahaja formula dia. 3 benda, we need to know the dividend, and dividend like I said is fixed kan. So dividend dia hanya ambil the percentage of dividend darab dengan par value, and then identify what would be the market price, harga yang dijual, and minus the flotation cost kalau ada. Okay, what would be the flotation cost lah ataupun the issuance cost. So there's another example here. Company ni again nak issue 1 million with 100 ringgit par. So this is par value, 100 ringgit. Dividend dia 10%. Okay, so dividend is 10% darab 100. So 100 darab 10%, 10 ringgit lah. Okay, so the dividend is 10 ringgit. Market price 98. So this is your market price 98. And 5% flotation cost. So flotation cost is 5%. Again, kalau dia tak mention flotation cost of what, based on what, kita akan assume dia based on par lah. Okay, based on par, which is 5% darab par, which is 100 ringgit. Kita dapat 5 ringgit kat sini. Unless they specify the flotation cost from the market price. Kalau dia tulis itu 5% flotation cost from the market price, kita ambil 5% darab dengan 98 instead. Okay, so kalau dia tak tulis, kita assume dia based on par lah. Okay, tapi selalunya soalan sepatutnya dia kena clear. It's either based on par ataupun based on the market price. Okay, so dia suruh kira cost dengan selling price. So selling price ni kita tak payah kira lah. Kita tengok the KPS sahaja. So I tulis mula formula dia is dividend, market price tolak flotation cost. So I dah tulis tadi kat atas ni. So the dividend D is 10 ringgit. Market price is 98 ringgit. And flotation cost FC is 5 ringgit. Obviously darab 100 lah in order to convert into percentage. So it's 10 ringgit divided by 93. So we get 10.75%. Itu sahaja. Then we get straight away the cost of preferred stocks, which is 10.75%. Okay, kalau bond tadi we get 8.35 ataupun 8.21% depending on which model you use. Untuk preferred, we get 10.75%. Okay, so between the two, obviously for now, the bond is cheaper. Sebab dia dalam 8.something% and 8.21%. Okay, tapi untuk preferred stock, the cost is 10.75%. Okay, 2% higher. Lebih kurang lah, 1.something% higher. Right, so this one lah, 10.75%. Okay, and we move on to the last part. So ni tadi dapat itu je information. We need 3 information, then we straight away can get the answer. Okay, cuma twist ataupun trap yang ada untuk soalan preferred ni selalunya melibatkan flotation cost. Okay, sama ada flotation cost based on market price ataupun flotation cost based on par value. Okay, especially kalau ditulis itu 5% off market price tapi letak RM5. Sebab kalau 5% off 98 contohnya 0.05 darab 98, so it's supposed to be RM4.90. 10 sen, ada beza 10 sen lah kat situ kan. So again, walaupun 10 sen, kalau you salah letak kat sini RM5, then it will be considered wrong. Okay, so please read the question carefully. So untuk common equity ataupun common stocks ni, this is the representations of ownership. So siapa yang own the common stocks ni adalah owner of the company. Lagi banyak number of units that you hold, the bigger position you be. So kalau you punya number of shares yang you pegang tu lebih daripada 50%, 51, 52%, technically you are the majority shareholders. So you akan ada hak yang lebih besar lah pada syarikat tu. And as the real owner of the company, you gonna bear the highest risk among the three. Kan kita dah cerita tadi, bond yang paling risiko paling rendah, and then preferred, and then lastly common. Okay, but bearing the highest risk, you might enjoy the highest return sebab bond dengan preferred, dia punya return tu fix. Okay, kalau lah company tu perform extremely well tahun tu, so dia punya return sama je, fix sebab dia dah fix kan. But as the common stockholders, kalau profit dia banyak tahun tu, you might enjoy bigger dividends. Itu kelebihan common equity lah, tapi at the same time, kalau lah company tu rugi, so you yang paling rugilah sebab you might end up with no dividend. Okay, sebab bond tadi, kalau company tu rugi, still they have to pay the coupon. Coupon tu adalah compulsory. Dia tak boleh skip bayar coupon. Okay, so yeah. Cuma untuk preferred tu mungkin I tak explain tadi. Preferred tu pula dia macam flexible a bit. Kalau dia profit dia kena bayar, tapi kalau dia tak profit, dia boleh tak bayar tahun tu. But again, dia ada dua jenis. Tapi assuming katalah explain pasal cumulative. Kalau cumulative meaning next year bila company tu profit, dia kena bayar balik tahun yang dia tak bayar tu. Tu dividen untuk preferred lah. Tapi untuk common equity, kalau tahun ni dia rugi and tak bayar, so you end up nothing. So tahun depan tunggu, if it's profit, then tahun depan je lah dapat return. So that's why again the ranking tu common stockholders adalah jenis instrumen yang paling tinggi risiko dia lah. And this risiko sebenarnya referring to the investors punya risiko. Right, the characteristics kalau bond tadi par value 1,000, preferred is RM100 for common stocks. There's no specific value for par. Okay, so par value tu depending on the value of their common stocks together dengan number of shares dia. So dia tak ada standardized par value. Ada some company mungkin RM1, ada yang RM2, RM5 ataupun mungkin sen. Okay, so there's no specific par value lah. And because of that, bila kita nak calculate kejap lagi for the cost of common stocks, kita still akan perlukan dividend. However, kalau preferred tadi, the dividend will be expressed in percentage. Okay, 5% dividend rate. Then kita ambil 5% tu and then multiply dengan par value. Because we have a standardized par value. But for common stocks, since we don't have standardized par value, so dividend tu selalunya akan diberi dalam bentuk ringgit. Okay, akan beri dalam bentuk ringgit. But there are two types of dividend. Expression dia, either the dividend tu adalah dividend terkini ataupun dividend yang expected. And I'm gonna share with you the difference between the two kejap lagi lah. So the rest tu tak boleh baca je. There are two measurement of valuation. Okay, satu adalah dipanggil zero growth. Kalau you perasan zero growth, kalau K tu kat sini, this is technically similar to preferred stocks. Kenapa similar? Sebab zero growth bermaksud dividen dia fix. Okay, the zero growth maknanya dividen tu adalah fix. So bila fix, formula dia sama je macam preferred stocks. Okay, and because of that, selalu soalan akan suruh kita measure menggunakan golden growth model. Okay, ataupun Gordon growth model or constant growth model. Bermaksud the dividend tu akan grow setiap tahun. Maknanya dia akan berubah setiap tahun at one single growth rate. Dia akan bertambah lah. Kalau growth rate dia 10%, contohnya kalau G, growth rate dia 10%. So setiap tahun, the dividend akan naik 10%. Right? Dia tak constant lah. Kalau macam preferred tadi kan, kita assume dia constant kan, the dividend. But here, it will be incremental. Dia akan berubah setiap tahun. And because of that, we have some adjustment we have to do to our formula. The ones in the bracket ni bracket the one in the bracket ni, nampak macam sama macam tadi, still ada dividend. D kosong ni, D ni dividend, P naught ni adalah the market price, and F ni sebenarnya flotation cost lah, FC. Alright, so dividend bahagi market price adalah FC is pretty much the same as preferred. Cuma dia ada tambah the growth rate at the back. Okay, kita tambah, kalau growth rate 10%, kita tambah 10% dekat belakang ni. And because of this, the common stock usually will give us the highest rate among the options. Okay, bond selalunya bagi kita rate yang paling rendah, common stock selalunya akan bagi kita rate yang paling tinggi. That's the assumption lah, tapi jangan guna assumption tu masa you buat calculation lah. Okay, but anyway, this D naught ataupun D kosong darab 1 plus G ni is technically this is your D1. So what does it mean? Okay, I tulis kat sini lah. Kita ada D naught. Naught tu kosong, D0. Whereby D naught ni adalah representation of current dividend. Okay, current dividend ataupun recently paid dividend. Okay, so technically D naught ni adalah dividen yang sudah dibayar. It's already paid. The recent one, yang terkini. Okay. And D1 pula apa? D1 adalah the expected dividend. Ataupun next dividend. So in general, D1 tu adalah dividen yang belum dibayar lagi ataupun di expected the next one. Right? So apa implikasi dia D0 dengan D1 ni? Sebab soalan boleh bagi either D0 or D1. Because here walaupun I tulis formula dia initially macam ni, so sebenarnya, bukan sebenarnya lah, the alternative way to see it untuk cari KCS ni adalah D1 divided by market price tolak flotation cost, okay, and in bracket dulu plus dengan growth rate. So this is actually the formula yang atas ni. Cuma dia dah kembangkan D1 tu to D0 darab dengan 1 plus G. So meaning kalau soalan kita bagi current dividend, kita kena darab dengan 1 plus G in order to find D1. But if the question already give us expected dividend, D1, so tak perlulah darab dengan 1 plus G lagi. Okay, so you just take D1, put it here, and then terus bahagi dengan MP tolak FC, and plus G at the end. Okay, so I have the both examples. Okay, kita akan tunjuk kejap lah the difference between soalan bagi kita D0 dengan soalan bagi kita D1. Right, and what will be the implication to our formula lah. Right, tak banyak beza. The only tricky part again is the dividend punya part sahaja. Kalau preferred tadi, the tricky part is the flotation cost, walaupun taklah tricky mana. Untuk common stock is just the D1. Sebab flotation cost tak perlu confuse, sebab memang the flotation cost will be based on the market price, sebab kita tak ada par value. Kalau preferred tadi, flotation cost dia bergantung kepada either its par value 100 ataupun flotation cost based on market price. Okay, tapi untuk common stock, flotation memang always based on market price, but because we don't have standardized par value. Okay, so tak mungkin salah lah dekat sini. Okay, so the only tricky part untuk common stock hanyalah on your D1, to identify D1. Sama ada D1 tu dibagi di kosong ataupun dia dah bagi D1 siap-siap. Okay, dia akan jadi masalah bila dia D1, dia pergi darab lagi dengan 1 plus Z. So dia dah jadi D2 sebenarnya tu, di tahun kedua. Dividen tahun kedua. Alright, so yang common lah. The cost of retainer ni kita ignore je, kita tak kira yang ni. Kita fokus only on KCS sahaja. So KRE ni kita tengok lah. Right, so again, katakanlah company ni berkaitan dengan the first two earlier. So this company plans to issue new common stocks that incurs flotation cost of 5%. And this 5% flotation cost flotation cost 5%. So kita kena darab dengan the market price. Okay, market price dia RM5. So 5% kena darab RM5 lah. Jadi 25 sen. Okay, so flotation cost dah settle. 5% of RM5, 25 cents. And the keyword untuk dividend adalah recently paid. So they use the word recently paid. A dividend of 20 cents. So this is your D0, D0. Sebab dia recently paid So coming back to this, recently paid adalah D kosong. So bila D kosong, kena darab dengan 1 plus G sebab kita nak cari D1. Okay. Mana tadi? Okay, with the 10% growth rate. So G dia 10% lah. And then this is the market price, RM5. So the rest ni tak payah sebab this is actually for KRE. So to find the KCS, okay, so dividend dia 20 sen, but this is D0. Kena darab dengan 1 plus G. So the growth rate is 10%. So it's 1.1 lah. Okay, so this is D1, nak cari D1. 20 cents, darab dengan 1.1. Right, and then the market price is RM5 and the flotation cost adalah 25 cents. Okay, and then the growth rate is 10%. 0.1. Okay, 0.2 darab 1.1 divide by RM4.75 plus 0.1. So we have 14.63%. So this is our cost of common stocks. Okay, so lebih kurang sama je, mudah dia nak kira. Like the preferred stocks. Cuma don't forget to add the growth rate dekat belakang ni. Right, so if you recall tadi cost of debt kita ada 8. Berapa tadi 21% ataupun 8.35%. And then kita ada KPS 10.75%. And now we have KCS of 14.63%. Right, so if the question asks us, okay, bila kita dah calculate semua ni, selalunya akan end up satu dengan decision making. Kita dah do all the necessary calculations. Next, we're gonna do some decision making. So what kind of decision making? Number one, soalan suruh pilih, okay, what would be the best option untuk company ni? Kita assume tiga-tiga example ni company yang sama. Walaupun sebenarnya tadi first nama company lain, second lain, yang ni tak ada tulis nama company kan. Katalah assuming the company is the same and then we have three different rates kat sini. So if the question asks us to choose which is the best, so obviously we're going to choose bond lah. The best sebab dia bagi kita rate yang paling rendah as compared to the three. Okay, so that's one scenario. Okay, cuma kalau you ingat tadi ada mention for long-term financing, sometimes the company might not want to choose only one. Mungkin. Okay. So kalau dia tak pilih satu, maksud dia apa? They might end up pick all three. Dia akan gunakan ketiga-tiga sumber ni untuk dapatkan dia punya funding, and because of they use all three, we need to know what will be the average cost. Okay, sebab 8.35, 10.75, 14.63. So berapa sebenarnya cost keseluruhan dia? So we need to find the average. Tapi bila kita cerita pasal average, kita tak boleh lah just ambil 8.35 tambah 0.75 tambah 14.63 and then bahagi 3. It's not a simple average punya calculation. Okay, so the average that we're going to use is called the weighted average. Okay, ni tadi dah ada jawapan So the average is called the weighted average cost of capital ataupun usually we call them WACC. WACC ni WACC. So this WACC bergantung kepada the composition of the capital structure. So we need to know berapa weight ataupun percentage of setiap satu source of financing tu based on the current scenario. So contohnya macam ni kita ada bonds, kita ada preferred stocks, kita ada common stocks. Okay, katakanlah for the sake of easier calculation, bond dia ada 30 juta. Currently dalam dia punya balance sheet, dia ada tulis kat situ bond dia ada 30 juta nilai dia. Preferred dia ada 30 juta juga. And then common stock dia ada 40 juta. So this is the current structure. So yang pure debt 30 je. So 30 campur 40 kita boleh combine sebagai equity lah. So ada 70 equity. So 30 tu memang debt. So kalau based on tadi dia nak walaupun tak banyak dia nak sejuta je kan. Dia nak issue sejuta saja. Mana tadi? Dalam ni tak tulis tapi example yang awal-awal ni dia nak 1 million sahaja kan. Assuming katakanlah the company wants to increase 1 million ataupun nak raise 1 million. Okay. Kalau dia guna bond semata-mata, so from 30 million ni dia akan naik to 31 million. Okay, tulis kat sini lah. Alternatif 31 million, yang lain tu akan kekal. So apa beza dia? So kalau kat sini 30-30-40 dia ada 100 million. Kat sini bila kita combine everything, it becomes 101 million lah. So dia ada tambahan 1 juta kan. So bila 30-30-40 ni, the ratio, the percentage ni, it's 30%, 30%, 40% composition. Ni composition dia lah. For 3. But when they want to issue new ataupun when they want to raise additional money, sebab dia 1 juta mungkin tak significant sebab sikit but still they naik 31 million. So you will see the difference into the punya structure So 31 divided by 31 divided by 101. So now it becomes about 31%. Okay, so yang 30 ni pula akan jadi about still maintain about 30% bila dah round up lah So 40 ni akan turun sikit lah. Okay, about 39%. Okay, so the composition ni lari a bit daripada original. So daripada 30, dia sekarang naik ke 31. Tu sebab dia tak significant lah sebab dia naik 1 million je kan. Tapi imagine kalau dia nak raise 10 million, 20 million more. So kalau dia pilih bond semata-mata, so the composition of this structure will reshuffle. Okay, and some company tak nak reshuffle benda ni. So, apa solution dia kalau dia tak nak reshuffle ni? Dia akan raise 1 million ni tadi according to the current structure. So, maksudnya kat sini, from 1 million yang dia nak, 30%, which is 30% from 1 million, 300,000, dia akan issue bond. Okay, 300,000 dia issue bond. Preferred stock pun 30% kan, so dia akan issue 300,000 untuk preferred, and then the balance 400,000 lagi dia akan issue common stock. And by having this, dia akan make sure that this 30-30-40 akan maintain. So the question would be, so berapa average cost dia kan? So that's why we need to know the percentage of this 30-30-40 ni, and then kita akan darab dengan each cost of capital. So kita ada berapa tadi? 8.35, kita ada 10.75, kita ada 14.63%. Okay, so that's why kat sini, assuming the cost, the weightage is 30-30-40, okay, 30 debt, 30 preferred, 40 common equity, and then kita darab dengan the respective rates, 8.35, I guna 8.35, 10.75, and 14.63. So kita darablah setiap satu tu dengan respective weights. And don't forget the plus sign sebab dia punya formula adalah the sum of, the sum of multiplication ataupun the product of the weightage darab dengan the cost of capital. So the average cost of capital adalah bila dia use all three is at 11.58%. So bila nak guna WACC ni, kalau soalan suruh kira lah, instead of choose one, what would be the weighted average cost of capital if the company wants to maintain the optimal capital structure. Sebab dia believe, okay, yang structure yang sedia ada ni yang paling optimum, yang paling terbaik untuk dia orang lah. So dia tak nak ubah the structure. So therefore, they use all three. Okay, and because of that, we end up bukan pilih satu, we use all three and we find the average cost of capital. Okay, so yeah, akan ada dua ending lah kemungkinan lepas kita dah calculate each individual, either the question asks us to choose one ataupun disuruh kira average, depending on question. Right, so with that we end the topic number 9. Yeah, ada soalan?
Sir,
Ya.
saya nak tengok slide 32 tadi balik boleh?
32. Ni. Saya dah padam lah pula Dah 32. Nak tengok soalan ke nak tengok solution?
Yang solution seconteng tadi.
Kita tulis balik lah sebab I dah discard tadi sekejap. You nak tengok di the KPS lah kot ni KPS ni dia punya jawapan ni sebenarnya ada kat belakang tu. Cuma the explanation would be D ni adalah the dividend, and the dividend is based on 10% dengan par value, which is RM10. And then we divide by RM98 is the market price. And this is the flotation cost. Flotation cost is 5% of RM100. Yang ni 5% of RM100. So ni market price. Yang ni 10% darab RM100, which is RM10. Okay, so tiga benda ni je. The dividend RM10, market price RM98, and 5% ni is 5% darab 100. RM5. Okay, so then we end up with this lah. So RM10, this is RM10. 98 minus RM5. So this is 93 lah. Dalam bracket ni is 93. So RM10 divided by 93 times 100, then we get 10.75%.
Sir, nak tengok yang second last page sebelum topik 9 punya final tu.
Sekarang dah tak ada lah yang ini.
Okay sir, thank you.
Yeah. Right, so we have one more topic to go sebenarnya. I nak explain cuma ini I akan explain in brief sahaja. Which is topic number 10 mathematics of finance ataupun concept of time value of money. Asri kalau boleh mute ke?
Okay sir.
So the final topic of the day is topic number 10, mathematics of finance ataupun the concept of time value of money. So I just briefly explain the concept of time value of money ni, whereby the value of money today is not the same as the value in the future. Okay, itu je lah konsep time value of money, whereby duit yang kita ada hari ni can be invested and assume ataupun kita akan make an assumption value tu akan bertambah pada masa akan datang. So the broad categories of time value of money ada dua. We have the present value. We use PV punya initials, or the future value. We use the symbol FV. Okay. So the present value dengan future value ni dia inverse between each other. So present value macam ni. Katakanlah ni timeline 10 pula. Sekarang 0 is now, 3 is 3 years from now. So present value bermaksud kita tahu satu value pada tahun ketiga and you want to know what with the present value. So kita tak tahu present value, which is the future value is known. This is future value. And the present value is unknown. Hence the question mark lah. So itu nak mencari present value. Kalau future value pula dia terbalik. Kalau 3 tahun juga. So the present value is known. But what would be this present value in the future? So this is unknown. Okay, so position dia in reverse. So present value ni konsep dia dipanggil discounting. Kalau future value ni konsep dia dipanggil compounding. Kita compound value tu. Right. So untuk time value of money ni again ada dua approach. Pertama, if we have financial calculator, konsep yang sama macam kita calculate bond tadi, we can use the CMPD function, compound function, to identify the values. Okay. Cuma tadi kita ada alternatif, kalau tak ada financial calculator, kita buat estimation guna what yield to maturity kan. Kita kena guna formula. So untuk time value of money ni, kalau kita tak ada financial calculator untuk calculate, alternatively, we need to rely on sama ada formula ataupun nak memudahkan lagi daripada formula, we use the time value of money table. Okay, so kalau you tengok past year questions, the only appendix yang ada dalam past year question adalah the tables. Okay, dekat belakang past year questions, setiap past year questions, you akan nampak 4 page of time value of money table. Okay, ada 4 keping ataupun 4 line. Time value of money table lah, dia ada 4 jenis. And that is the only reference that we can use untuk tengok calculate lah present value ataupun future value. Okay, so for today, I will explain using both scenarios, tapi dalam bentuk yang ringkas lah, sebab we have about less than half an hour ni. Cari, tak ada. Okay. This is the table. Okay, this is the table. I share dulu table yang apa yang boleh tengok dekat apa dekat this one I already attached sebenarnya dalam your future. So you boleh tengok ada future value interest factor, annuity, present value interest factor, and present value interest factor annuity. So there's 4 tables. Kalau you tengok dalam past year, okay, so dekat belakang ni, okay, kat belakang ni lah dia punya table lah. Ada table 1, table 2, table 3, and also table 4. Okay, yang bulat-bulat ni bukan daripada situ ni I tunjuk example masa tu untuk kelas yang lain.
So sebenarnya table ni macam mana nak guna?
Sekejap lagi I explain how to use. And setiap satu table ni tak sama dengan masing-masing lah. Sebab kalau you salah tengok table, it will give us different or wrong answer. So kita tengok balik the concept ni present value of money table. So as I said, dia ada 2 jenis, broad category, present dengan future. Right, so kita straight tengok future value dulu. Okay, so future value as I said is something value yang kita tahu present value dia berapa banyak, and then we want to know how much will it be in the future. So contoh paling mudah bila cerita pasal future value adalah savings lah, savings. If we put our money in a bank account hari ni, katakanlah RM1,000, how much money will it be in the bank account dalam tempoh 5 tahun yang akan datang. But dalam konsep future value ataupun time value money in general, we need to know two things. Ada dua benda yang kita kena tahu. We need to know the interest rate. Okay. Sometimes they symbolize as K, sometimes they symbolize as I, K ataupun I. And kita kena tahu the N. N ni adalah dia punya time lah. So that's why dalam table tadi, kalau you perasan dia ada dua apa? Dia macam table kan. So dia ada yang horizontal values dengan vertical values. So kejap lagi saya tunjuk macam mana kita nak cross-reference kan between the interest rate dengan the time tu untuk cari the interest factor. So that's why ada bulat tadi kan. So bulat tu adalah the amount interest factor untuk that particular question. Okay. So formula yang kita boleh guna pakai, okay, you tak payah tengok yang ni kena hafal ni kalau nak kira. Kita tengok yang ni je. Okay, FV ni adalah future value, okay, whereby PV tu adalah the known amount, the present value, darab dengan FVIF, K and N. So FVIF ni apa? This is the table, future value, interest factor, with the K interest rate, N tu time. Okay, or alternatively, I suka tulis macam ni je, FV equals to amount, EMT, FVIF, sorry. K and N dekat sini. Right, so EMT amount dengan PV ni sebenarnya sama sahaja, cuma kalau you tengok formula yang lain kejap lagi, bila PV dekat luar pula, so kat bawah ni jadi FV. So kalau I guna EMT, so semua formula I akan guna EMT je. So lebih mudah nak ingat lah formula. So anyway, regardless, I illustrate again concept of future value. So future value katakanlah now is 0, and then I want to know dalam tempoh 5 tahun berapa nilai value I. So katakanlah today I invest RM1,000 in an account that give me 10% return. So this is my K, 10%. And I want to know if this RM1,000 hari ni I deposit, how much will it be in 5 years time? So what will be the future value? So I know the N is 5 years. Okay. So ini the information yang I perlu tahu in order for me to find what will be my future value. So amount is the amount of deposit ataupun amount of debt yang you pinjam, amount borrowed. So dalam case ni kita deposit 1,000 kan. So amount dia 1,000 lah. Okay. And then kita tulis balik FVIF, which referring to the table. The K is 10%. And the N 5 tahun. Right, so the ones in the bracket, kita tak perlu kira. Kita hanya perlu refer dalam table. Refer to the table. So table yang mana? Dalam case ni, table FVIF lah. Future value, interest factor. So coming back to this. So make sure refer to the correct table. Table mana? FVIF, future value, interest factor. Ataupun kat sini dia dah tulis lah, FVIF, KN. Okay. So what you need to do is to cross-reference the two information tadi. Kita ada K yang horizontal ni, daripada 1% sampai 30%, walaupun ada yang missing kat dalam ni. And then the N. N tu adalah period dia. So the illustration I gave just now, I use 10% and I use 5 years. So 10% 5 tahun, the interest rate adalah 1.6105. Ini okay, 1.6105. So what I need to do, so I just put 1.6105 kat dalam bracket ni, and then kita akan multiply direct dengan RM1,000 ni, sebab I deposit RM1,000 ni. So 1000 darab 1.6105, it will become 1,610.50 cents. And this is my future value. So apa maksudnya kat sini? If I deposit in an account that give me 10%, RM1,000 today, in 5 years time, saya akan ada RM1,610.50 in my account. Okay, straightforward lah. Terus kita dapat jawapan. Tapi dengan syarat kita ada table tu lah. And table tu memang for sure ada semasa exam nantilah. Okay, table will be given. So if you don't have the financial calculator contohnya, so you boleh tengok kat table tu je. Tapi dengan syarat you know to read the table and you refer to the correct table. Sebab setiap table tu akan ada 10% dengan 5. And setiap table tu lain dia punya value lah, 10% and 5 tu. Okay, so this is the concept of future value. Okay, dengan assumption the 1,000 that you deposit dalam account tu you tak withdraw. And secondly, the amount of return yang you dapat setiap tahun tu pun you tak withdraw as well. Hence the name, the compounding approach lah. Okay, so that's the future value. But what if kita deposit lebih daripada sekali? Ini kita deposit sekali je ni. Deposit sekarang RM1,000 and then we just keep it in the bank for 5 years. But what if we deposit RM1,000 and then kita deposit another amount the following year? Okay, so kita boleh nampak, ni dah ada jawapan dia. Kita boleh nampak, contoh dia macam ni. Dia deposit RM1,000 hari ni, but next dia deposit RM3,000 the following year. So there are two values. And what would be the value at the end of year 3? Okay, assuming the rate sama, 6%. So what would be the value? So untuk yang deposit hari ni, kalau kita bawa ke tahun ketiga, we know the N is equivalent to 3 lah, sebab 3 tahun kan, from 0 to 3 is 3 years. But the 3,000 yang deposit the following year tu, from here to here, the N tu adalah 2 tahun saja. So we have two different principal, two different amounts, and two different N. Okay, with the rate of 6%. So if we refer to the same table, cuma now the rate is 6%. So akan ada dua rate lah. 6% in 3 years adalah 1.1910. And for the 2 years is 1.1236. So kita akan darab respectively the 1,000 and the 3,000 based on these two rates. Sorry. And we're gonna get the total value of 4,561 and 80 cents in total. Okay, dia ada dua rate yang berbeza, interest factor yang berbeza based on two different principles. Sebab deposit dia tak sama besar ataupun tak sama banyak lah. Okay. So that's the concept of future value, tapi ni multiple cash flow. And multiple cash flow ni dipanggil uneven. Sebab uneven kenapa? Sebab dia tak sama banyak value dia. Nilai dia tak sama. But what if kalau multiple cash flows tapi equal? Maksudnya kalau 1,000, 1,000, 1,000 setiap tahun. Okay, so that concept adalah dipanggil sebagai annuity. Tak ada tulis kat sini, kejap lagi kat belakang saja annuity. Tapi biar explain straight away je lah sebab konsep future value. So dia ada future value annuity. Ini annuity. So formula dia akan sama je. I use the amount FIFA and then K and N. So the K is the rate of return sama ataupun rate of interest, N is the time. Cuma table kita guna future value, interest factor, annuity. Itu kalau every payment is the same. Itu dipanggil equal cash flow stream. So kejap lagi lah kita tengok kejap But before we go into annuity, kita tengok the opposite of future value, which is present value. So present value is the reverse version. Okay, reverse and reciprocal to each other. So I dah explain tadi how the movement now from here to here. And present value banyak diguna pakai when we do investment analysis for comparison purposes. Okay, so again, that's why bila tengok kat sini dia punya formula dia bila PV dia letak sini, FV dia reverse. Tapi kalau I just use PV equals to amount. So you know amount ni can be amount of deposit ataupun amount borrowings. Darab dengan kalau PV, PVIF. KNN. Okay, kalau tadi FV kan, FV, amount, FVIF. Kalau annuity kejap lagi, FVA, amount, FVIFA. KN. So kalau PVA, which present value annuity, again formulated amount, PVIFA. So I just keep the amount ni consistent so that I tak payah nak ingat lah kalau FV sini PV, kalau PV sini FV. So just make it simpler lah, walaupun basically is the same je sebenarnya. And whenever amount yang kita nak cari, whatever amount yang kita nak cari kat depan ni, that's the table that we're going to refer to. FV, FVIF, PV, PVIF and so on. Okay, so yang lain tu sama je lah. Right, so ni example for present value. So present value ni dia bagi, this is the future value. Future value dia 1191. N dia 3 tahun. This is N, 3 years. And the K is 6%. So 6%, 3 years based on present value. So you need to find the present value. So ni kita tengok table ni pula. Kalau kita tengok present value, ni PVIF, the 6% and 3 years. So 6% and 3 years is 0.8396. Kat sini 6%, 3 years based on PVIF, sebab kita nak buat present value, is 0.8396. Okay, so 0.8396 darab dengan 1191.02, it will give us around 1,000 ringgit. So the present value of 191.02 tu is 1,000 ringgit today. Okay, as a rule of thumb, present value always be smaller than the future value, and vice versa lah. Future value always be bigger than the present value. Nilai future value lagi besar daripada present value. Okay, sebab kita nak compound tadi kan, so value dia lagi besar lah. Bila kita discount, dia punya value semakin mengecil and become smaller. Alright, so that's why from 1191 jadi 1,000 bila dia present value kan lah. Okay. Similarly, kalau dia multiple cash flow, dalam case ni dia ada 150, ada 200, ada 100, is uneven, so we have to calculate individually. So 150 ni kena kena discount 3 tahun, and 200 ni kena discount setahun, yang 100 ringgit ni tak payah discount lah sebenarnya, is 100 ringgit value today. Right, with the rate of 6%, what is the value today? And disuruh tanya what would be the value of the present value lah. So here, as you can see, you get the present value of 414 ringgit and 62 cents. So again, boleh tengok kat table lah, 6% 1 berapa rate dia, PVIF 6% and 3 berapa dia punya interest factor. Ni tadi kita dapat lah 0.8936 kan, kalau yang 3, 6% 3. 0.8936. Ni yang 3. Yang 1 ni 0.9434. 0.9434. So ni 1.000 lah, ni tak payah kira. Bila 6% and 0 is 1 actually. So 100 times 1 is 100 lah. Sebab this is current value already. Sebab 100 ni hari ni. So we don't have to calculate sebenarnya. This is 100 ringgit. We just bring this 200 ringgit today. This 150 today. So yang ni pun tak payah kira lah sebab dia memang 0 kan. So 200 times ni and then 150 times this one. Then you get the total of 414, 62 cents. Okay. So that's present value of both individual atau single payment ataupun multiple payments. Okay, multiple cash flows. So as I mentioned earlier, dia akan ada moment whereby the payment of something tu can be in a equal amount. So equal amount tu dipanggil annuity. So annuity ni selalunya terjadi dalam financial transactions such as mortgages on on property, kalau kita beli rumah contohnya kita bayar installment rumah sama je setiap bulan. Kalau rental kita bayar rental yang sama setiap bulan. Hire purchase for cars sama setiap bulan. Okay, leasing, insurance premium, loans for your personal financing and so on. Semua tu menunjukkan transaction yang berlaku setiap bulan sama. So contohnya macam ni lah, RM300 sebulan untuk 60 bulan, untuk tempoh 5 tahun. So what's going to happen if we have this annuity? So this annuity memudahkan dan mempercepatkan proses. Instead of we calculate one by one macam ni tadi kan, we have to calculate one by one sebab value dia tak sama. So kalaulah transaction tu berlaku RM100 every month ataupun every year RM100, consistent, ni pun 100, sini pun 100, this one pun 100 contohnya, we can simplify by using the annuity. So instead of we calculate one by one, we just use one single formula. Formula dia apa? Formula tadi lah ada tulis kan, FVA. Kat sini tadi lah. FVA. So kita guna FVIFA table. Okay, so amount ni adalah amount yang sama, which is dalam kes tadi RM100 contohnya. Okay, cuma untuk detailkan lagi annuity ni, dia ada dua jenis pula annuity ni. Complicated lah benda ni. So we have the ordinary annuity and then we have the annuity due. So apa beza dia between the two? When it happen. Okay, for ordinary they occur at the end. Yang untuk annuity due ni they happen at the beginning. And what would be the difference in terms of the formula? Okay, I tunjuk satu je lah. FVA, formula dia tadi apa? Amount, darab FVIFA, K and N. Right? Tapi untuk annuity due pula, FVA, I tambah the letter D kat sini nak menunjukkan future value annuity due. Darab dengan amount, sama je. Darab dengan FVIFA, K and N yang sama. Cuma we have to add 1 plus K at the back. So this part dia yang kita kena buat adjustment for annuity due. So in general, semua kita akan assume ordinary. Semua. Kalau dia tak mention anything, we're gonna assume this is a normal annuity lah, ordinary. Tetapi kita kena buat penambahan information 1 plus K at the end ni kalau ada word macam ni lah, dia use the word beginning, dia punya payment tu compounding immediately, now, early of the year. So itu menunjukkan dia berlaku beginning and therefore we have to plus ataupun we have to multiply 1 plus K at the back of whatever amount yang kita buat ni lah. So the first two part ni sama je, kedua-dua ni, cuma kita kena tambah 1 plus K at the back. Right, so ni dia punya illustration lah, nak menunjukkan perbezaan in terms of the PMT ataupun the amount tu. So ni contoh, satu ordinary, satu due, 500 kedua-duanya. So the AMT 500, the K 7% and the N is 3. So apa beza dia? Okay, kita tengok dulu kalau this is future value kalau this is future value, kita tengok table future value. Interest factor, annuity, which is this one, FVIFA, KN. This formula ataupun this table. So we need to know the 7% and the N of 3. So 7% N of 3 is 3.2149. Okay, 3.2149. So kita ambil kat sini patutnya you boleh letak 3.2149 darab dengan 500. Okay, then you're going to get 1,607.45. So ini tak payah tengok lah, ni yang confusing pula nanti. Kita guna yang bawah ni je, simple sebab kita dah ada table FVIFA ni. Okay, ni pun kat O ni N. Okay, so present value ataupun the amount is RM500. FVIFA 7% and 3. So kita dapat tadi from the table 3.2149 darab dengan 500, then we get 1607.45. Ni kalau ordinary. Tapi kalau di annuity due, VAD, so you akan ambil 500 darab 3.2149. Tapi you kena tambah dengan 1 plus K, and the K is 7% kan, so 1 plus 7% is 1.07. So you kena tambah ni kat belakang, and it will become this one. Ini ke? Ni present value, sorry, yang ni. Ini so dia akan jadi future value 1719.95. 1719.95. Okay, 500 darab 3.2149 darab dengan 1.07. So from this 1607, because dia berlaku at the beginning, it becomes 1719.95. Okay, ni sama, this one pun sama, cuma dia ada additional 1.07 at the back. Because of the compounding extra tu, dia jadi 1719 lah. So sama juga dengan present you can try. Information yang sama, 503 years. Cuma table yang diguna pakai adalah table PVIFA. Okay, again ni tak payah tengok yang ni. Tengok yang ni saja. So RM500 is the future value. We want to find the present value. So PVIFA 73 would be ini PVIFA, present value interest factor annuity, ada kata annuity, 7% and 3 is 2.6243. Point 6243. Ni point yeah, 7% 3 is 2.6243. So 2.6243 times 500, then it become 1,312 and 15 cents. Okay, so kalau annuity due sama juga, you just plus 1 plus K lah dekat belakang ni So it become 1404.00. Okay. Right, to wrap up, just nak highlight the effect of compounding periods. Semua yang kita discuss tadi, semua kita assume the compounding tu annually. Maknanya annually bermaksud dia compound setahun sekali. So bila dia setahun sekali, the M, which is M represent dekat sini M. So M tu adalah the number of compounding in a year. So compound in a year. So kalau dia annually, so M dia equals to 1 lah. Kalau dia semi-annual, M dia equals to 2 sebab dia compound 2 kali setahun. So kalau di quarterly, M dia 4 times. So what's going to happen? Dia akan effect kepada kita punya K dengan N tadi. Whereby the K, we have to divide dengan M. Kalau dia punya N, we have to multiply dengan M. So maksudnya macam ni lah. Katakanlah kita tengok quarterly macam ni kan. So quarterly sepatutnya kita akan dapat 10% in a year. Tapi sebab dia dah bayar 4 kali, takkan kita dapat 10% 4 kali. Dia jadi 40% kan. So the 10% kena divide by 4 times. So setiap kali compounding tu dia akan compound 2.5% sahaja. Okay, tapi bila dia darab dengan 4 in a year, it will be 10% lah. Okay, that's the case. So that's why we divide by M. Untuk N pula, kita kena darab dengan M, which is kalau dia quarterly, dia akan berlaku 4 kali. So meaning in a year, kalau dia berlaku quarterly, bermaksud dia akan compound 4 kali setahun. So kalau dalam 2 tahun, it will become 8 times. Okay, 8 times. So this is an adjustment that we need to do, and because of this adjustment, the reference dalam table kita akan berubah. Okay, instead of 10% and 2, sekarang kita kena refer at 2.5% and 8. Okay, mungkin 2.5% ni macam mana nak tengok table tadi tak ada 2.5% kan. So kita tengok adjustment macam ni. Okay, mungkin lebih senang nampak lah. So original dia 12% and 2 years. So kita tengok 12% and 2 years berapa, and then kita compare dengan semi-annual. So semi-annual, M dia equals to 2. So 12% divided by 2 is 6%. And the N of 2 darab 2, it becomes 4. So kita nak tengok 12.2 dengan 6.4 ni. Apa perbezaan ataupun implikasi dia. So kita tengok FVIF lah. Mudah So we have 12% and 2 years. 12% and 2 years adalah 1.2544. So it become 1.2544. Okay, untuk future value assuming this is future value. Kalau untuk semi annual pula, bila dia jadi 6% and 4, 6% and 4, dia akan jadi 6% and 4, it become 1.2625. So what happened? Kalau I deposit 10,000, okay. So if my account is compounding annually, so after 2 years, my account akan ada RM12,544. Okay, RM12,544. But if my account is compounded semi-annually with the same amount of 10,000 deposits, I'm going to have 12,625. So ada additional 100 lebih kat sini. Ataupun dekat RM100 lah beza. Okay, itu kalau 10,000. Kalau 100,000, kalau 1 million, so the compounding effect dia akan jadi lagi besar lah. Alright, so this is the adjustment that you have to do kalau dia compounding dia berbeza daripada annually. So kalau annually tak ada masalah, you don't have to adjust anything. But if it's semi-annually ke, quarterly ke, monthly ke, you have to make such adjustment lah. Okay, depending on the M. So whereby M equals to the number of sub-periods ataupun the number of compounding in a year. Right, so ni contoh-contoh dia lah kat belakang ni. Okay, I think itu saja untuk hari ni. Sebenarnya dekat belakang ni ada example with exercise. You can try. If you need to know the answers, nanti let me know. I can share with you dia punya jawapan lah. Alright. Let me stop sharing kejap. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
nak tanya. Group assignment nak hantar kat mana?
Dalam dekat apa nama benda tu? Dekat dalam tu boleh submit kan dekat group assignment punya question tu. Boleh submit kat situ kan? Just like when you submitted the test masa tu. So you similarly you can submit the group by group dekat dalam tu juga. So you kena letak nama all of you group mates and then seorang je submit nanti. So try explore.
Saya rasa belum buat lagi lah untuk tempat nak submit tu.
Ya ke? Nanti ada double check. Tapi kalau ikutkan kat situ je kena submit. Nanti ada double check balik. Okay, ada lagi yang lain?
Yang untuk group assignment tu, yang video tu nanti bagi link lah, sir.
Masuk sekali dalam your report tu. Give me the link tapi dalam report yang sama. Jangan hantar separately lah. Just letak dekat mana, dekat front page ke, dekat appendix kat belakang ke, your link.
Sir, yang video tu dia link ke QR?
Dua-dua boleh. As long as I boleh access.
I see.
Nak bagi dua-dua pun tak ada masalah. Sebab dulu initially I used to ask for hard copy. So hard copy lagi senang kalau QR sebab kalau link hard copy I kena type satu-satu kan. But now everything is soft copy. So tapi dengan syarat the link soft copy tu yang clickable-nya, yang link yang live tu lah. Kalau tak nanti sama je I kena copy paste juga kan. So link boleh, QR pun boleh. Kalau QR I scan guna phone je lah nanti.
So due date dia berapa bulan, sir? 6 hari bulan ke?
Ikut dalam tu ada tulis kan masa dalam apa? Dalam I tak ingat hari bulan. But it was in the instruction together kan. Nanti dah check semua.
Yes, dalam question dia tulis 4 bulan 1 hari ni.
Oh, okay.
By 12 PM ke, sir?
12 PM dah lepas.
Sorry, 12 AM.
12 AM dah 5.
11.59.
I tak ingat I set berapa. Dia ada deadline kot dalam tu. Nanti you tengok balik dalam instruction tu. Kalau tak nanti I adjust lah kejap lagi. 11.59 ni.
Kalau tolong adjustkan 6 hari bulan boleh?
6 boleh sir, last sir.
6.
Daripada mana 6 ah?
Yang untuk individual tu kalau 6 hari bulan boleh tak sir?
Last 6.
Sir, ada
Sebab
saya
hari ni ada 2 kena submit sir.
Apa yang 2?
Group assignment and individual punya
Oh.
quiz.
Tengok lah nanti I fikir. Tak boleh fikir kan ni ada kelas satu lagi ni.
sehari tu dalam kelas saya dapat yang 6 hari bulan tu lah untuk group. Cuma dia hari ni patutnya saya untuk group
I
assignment.
ingatlah dalam sistem tu I tulis, seingat I set according to mungkin bukan 6 hari bulan, dia seminar 6. Seminar 6, 4 hari bulan.
Boleh ke sir kalau group?
I tak set, tak mungkin I set dia random middle of the week. Selalunya I will set the weekend.
Alright.
Okay, tak apa. I have another class kejap lagi, another 5 minutes.
6 hari bulan sir. Thank you sir.
Tengok lah. Right, thank you.
Thank you sir.
Thank you, sir.
Baik sir. Dapat
Terima
question
kasih,
nama.
sir.
Dah bulan ni, sir. Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you sir.
Right, welcome.